Hi ladies and gentlemen, I have a message for you before we get into the information. It'll only take a moment, and that is, what is our response going to be to pedophilia? And we know that it's rampant, especially in different areas of government and places of authority where they can cover it up. We need participation more than anything else. That's what's really going to count. And so what I have here is Navy SEAL Craig Sawyer's website. It's called vetsforchildrescue.org. You don't need to spend a lot of time. We just need a lot of people to be involved for short times. Just little things that you can do. Please check those out. Thank you. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is the 18th of October, 2018. I'm Roy Potter. Welcome to the Potter Expositor. I have a special guest coming on today, which is one reason why I played the Craig Sawyer ad. You know, I first started supporting Craig Sawyer's efforts about 2 years ago, something like that. It may have actually been longer ago than that. Made those ads up, and as most of you who have followed me know that I've been pushing those types of operations for a long time, and to make people aware more than anything else. So we're going to talk a little bit about Craig today. Of course, if you can donate to his situation, that's great. But we have somebody else today that we're going to talk to as well. But let's start off with a little bit of information you might find kind of interesting, okay? I saw this morning, and I just had to bring it up. Did you know, and this is just one example of lack of awareness, intelligence, knowledge, I don't know what, but listen to this. 16.4 million Americans think that chocolate milk comes from brown cows and that white milk comes from white cows. I got this, I believe, from Jack Posobiec, and his comment was, and there's a question why we need the Electoral College. Brilliant, Jack, brilliant. So I thought I'd start off your morning with that. Okay, well, we're calling this Better a Millstone Necktie. And my guest today is Angela Kelly, and she's with Sound Choices Coalition. And we're going to get into what that is in a few minutes. I'm going to let her do most of the explaining. But for the title, most of you will know that reference to a millstone comes out of the New Testament. And I'm going to use the one in Matthew 18:6, and this is what it says. But whoso shall offend one of these little ones which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. I couldn't agree more. Now, yes, I know doctrinally and scripturally people will say, well, that's talking about innocent people that believe in Jesus, and then you try to get them to do sin or to go against Jesus and all that. But I think it has applicability also to the innocent children and offending them and hurting them and putting them in situations that aren't helping them to learn about what's right and wrong, but actually hurting them. So we're going to use it in both contexts today. And I'm going to throw in here just real quick, isn't it great that Hillary lost her security clearance and a number of her associates? Hillary Clinton lost her security clearance along with some of her associates. Just throwing that in there. Okay, we're going to be joined by our guest, Angela Kelly, at 8:15. She'll be calling me in, and we're going to be doing it the way we normally do, where I put her on speakerphone. A little background here first. This topic today is going to be about pedophilia in polygamous groups. A pretty hot topic, okay, for a number of reasons. And I have a few things I want to say up front, okay, because I don't want this to degenerate into a doctrinal argument. We're not here to discuss the pros and cons of anybody's relationship arrangements. Period. I don't want to hear what the Bible says against this or against that. That's not what we're about here today. Those are emotionally charged issues enough, and they'll take us off the objectivity of what we're about today, which is that crime is seen across the entire socioeconomic spectrum, across all cultures, across all religions, across all institutions. And we can argue the benefits and the problems with those things for a long time as far as the institutions and those cultural differences in that. What we're about is true criminal behavior. When you go out to hurt someone, take advantage of them to the point where you enslave them, assault them, or, of course, kill them. That's what we're about today. So if I see anybody in the chat saying this is bad or that's bad as far as religious, spiritual systems, I'll kick you. Okay? We're not here for that today. We're here for the children. And just because children are raised in different traditions, different cultures, the different culture in and of itself is not an abuse in most situations. There are exceptions. Okay, and I'm going to mention one here that'll probably get me kicked off of YouTube. But in fact, pedophilia, and I mentioned this once before, with non-pubescent males and females, in other words, probably 10 years of age or younger, that kind of sexual contact in Islam is permitted. I'm sorry, but it is. And not everybody, of course, and here's where it goes again. We're not here to attack a religious or spiritual system. Not everybody in Islam goes along with that. By the same token, okay, these types of crimes occur in Catholicism, as we all know, Protestantism, at government, private institutions. So, again, what we're about today is being willing to look at criminal behavior against children in the polygamous society. And we're not here to discuss the pros or cons of the polygamous lifestyle. That's not what we're about. Okay, so I just want to put that up front right now. Obviously, not every Catholic, not every what they call the FLDS that came out of the Mormon Church. Not all those people, merely because they're there, go along with these crimes. That's not the issue. And those of you who will try to say, well, guilt by association, if that were the case, then President Trump is guilt by association because he's with all of those people in the deep state, all those pedophiles, all those criminals in Congress and in the administration. So does that make him one? We could take it even further, right? We could talk about all kinds of associations. We have to deal in the world as we find it, and merely because we have associations with people, that doesn't mean we agree with them. That doesn't mean that we're like them. It means that out of the necessity of day-to-day business, or by just the situation that we find ourselves in, we might come into contact with those people. Those criminals. It doesn't mean that we're one. If that were the case, every police officer would be guilty of crime and criminal activity because of their associations. Of course, some of you would probably argue, yeah, that's right. They're all crooks. Not all of them. Again, we don't want to attack an entire group of people because of the actions of a few. Even in the FBI, you know how hard I am with the FBI, and I know the corruption goes from the top down, and that's not just at the top, like so many of the apologists and pundits will try to say that, the rank and file are good. No, they're not. But that's because it was designed that way. The recruiting process went that way, and the reward process went that way. Okay? So that's the reason why I'm hard on the FBI. If the agents are good, it's easy enough to prove. It's called, by their fruits you shall know them. If they refuse to do the types of things they did at Bundy Ranch, for instance, or during the trial, or if they refuse to do things like Andrew McCabe wanted them to do, Some agents came out and said, hey, we're investigating these different things not to bring criminal charges against Hillary, but so that they will know what to cover up, what to protect Hillary from. So there were some agents that came out and said that. The point is, if you want to make the world right, you stand up and you speak out. And so that's what we're going to do today. A little more information on Angela's situation here. She's the director, as I may have already said, for Sound Choices Coalition. And in the description box below is her contact information if you want to make donations or if you want to help in some other manner, okay? Because, as I said, these problems, these crimes happen in all communities and cultures, and the polygamous community, and I can't say I have personal knowledge of that except for one instance which I've talked about before, and he had already been arrested, was already being litigated at the time for that activity. But I've been out of it, of course, for a long time, too. I mean, that was in the 80s, and my contact with this particular individual when this happened was, I don't know, probably, I'm just guessing, early 2000s, something like that. I'm not really sure. It's been that long ago. But all that's been litigated, all that's been taken care of, so that particular individual's name might come up today, and that's okay because he has been a public figure. But I don't really want to go there because I don't think it's necessary. I think we need to give Angela the floor and let her tell us, what her concerns are and what she's trying to accomplish. And that, in Utah, the polygamy thing has been especially. I got to tell you, polygamy is not practiced just by Mormons. This is something that is actually in the Judeo-Christian tradition, not in Islam and in many other cultures around the world. But it's kind of hush-hush for obvious reasons. I mean, we've had some exceptions, myself, for instance, but that was because I had been harassed by the state and by the LDS Church. But lately, you've had some shows like, the Sister Wives type of thing and stuff like that. So it's kind of gotten out there a little bit more. But as you could see, if you ever watch that program, those people are certainly not criminals in the sense of the word that they abuse children, that kind of thing. So, and actually, society as a whole gets involved in different types of relationship arrangements. And like I said before, I don't want this today to be used to get into a doctrinal disagreement and argument over the pros and cons of that. Okay, that's not what we're here for. We're here about the kids because there is a problem. There absolutely is a problem. And some of these groups use their supposed so-called authority to push certain people in these groups that have this supposed authority, use their positions to push people into really bad situations. And so Angela's been working on this for a long time, and she should be calling in any time now. She's probably listening to me ramble on. Let's get ready for her so we can be ready to go. So, at any rate, the chat is on. Let me double check and make sure that that's the case. I think it's on. Yes, it's on. Go ahead and tweet this out. I think that a lot of people need to know what's going on here. And here's Angela, so let me answer this, and then we'll get on with it. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Oh, well. Have you heard my introduction? Did I do okay? Okay, yeah. One thing you want to be careful of is not to be listening to it in the background because the delay will cause you a problem in hearing what we're actually talking about. So, okay, so you probably know. Well, let me switch you to speakerphone, and I'm going to just let you have the floor initially on this because I've already talked enough. So hold on just a minute.
Okay.
And remember to speak up. My microphone here is pretty good, but we want to make sure that everyone can hear you, and I'll know about that here pretty soon. They always let me know if they're having a problem. So here we are. Go ahead, Angela.
Okay. First of all, just thank you for having me come on. I appreciate the time. a little bit about me, I guess, is I've been doing nonprofit work for a long time, about 15 years, in one sector or another. And the last several years, I've volunteered for Operation Underground Railroad. They rescue children from sex trafficking. And after that, I just really wanted to do work that helped my own state. I'm in Utah, and the polygamy issue has been interesting to me. And so when I was introduced to it in about February of this year, I really kind of dove in. So that's just a little bit about me. The issues that we want to discuss are that these fundamentalist groups in Utah there's just, the way it works is really complicated. I didn't even realize in my initial research how controlling they can be. For example, you could even pose the same comment in just a typical domestic violence relationship. Why do women stay? But when you connect it with religious belief, it's even more difficult to leave. So a lot of these women they're trapped because they fully believe that their salvation depends on whether or not they live this way. Along with that, there's, for me, what's really kind of a lot of really upsetting is there's a lot of child abuse, a lot. And since these communities, they do isolate themselves, I don't believe they isolate themselves because of polygamy. I believe they isolate themselves because the world is wicked. Most of them homeschool their children. And when you are isolated like that, and there's no outside knowledge or outside information, how do any of these people know basic things? For example, in the FLDS, this isn't true in every group, but within the FLDS,
and let's make sure they know who we're talking. The FLDS, primarily when you talk about that for everybody's information, is the Warren Jeffs group in Colorado City, which is in southern Utah and northern Arizona, right on the border, just so everybody knows. There are some other polygamous groups, which I'm sure she'll get into, but that's the one that's normally associated with being the FLDS. So go ahead. Sorry, Angela.
Oh, no problem. So the FLDS are taught that, the mothers are taught that their children don't belong to them. Their children belong to God, their children belong to the priesthood, and as well as their husbands. So they're taught, like, from a very early age that their children could be taken away and their husband could be taken away. And so even that simple right that we on the outside know, no one can take our children. Our children belong to us. It's another tactic that they use that instills fear, right, where they stay. But, all the groups have tactics like this, all of them. So a little bit about Sound Choices Coalition. Sound Choices Coalition was founded by Kristen Decker, and she was daughter of the prophet of the AUB group. Now, the AUB stands for Apostolic United Brethren. And so she grew up in Sandy, and all the other groups, too. So all the other groups, they dress just like everybody else. Only the FLDS down in Hilldale in Colorado City are dressed in those pioneer clothing. The others you would never even know that they were polygamous. But when Kristen was 16, she didn't leave the AUB until she was 50 years old, but at age 16, she knew that her fate would be to be a polygamous wife. And she talks about in her book how she really wanted Utah to enforce the laws so that she didn't have to be a polygamous wife at 16. I think that's really telling, and it makes me wonder how many other girls are living in society wishing that same thing. You know, if they would only enforce the laws, I know I wouldn't have to.
Yeah, I might interject here too, Angela, and you probably already know this. The legal age for marriage in Utah was 14, if you can believe that.
Yeah.
And then there was a group called Tapestry of Polygamy that came along in the late 1990s, and actually pushed the legislature to they wanted to raise it, I think, to 18, but the legislature, even after that, only went to 16. I think the legal age in marriage is still 16 in Utah. Of course, you have to get the parental consent and all that, but at least they got it raised from 14 to 16. So we see this kind of problem even in the governmental system itself, but certainly it's not being abused there the way it is by the so-called authorities in these groups. So go ahead. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And we actually do have, I don't know if you know about the bill for the next session, where they are going to try to raise it to 18. What's interesting is I read a post yesterday that although you can marry at 16, you cannot get a divorce unless you're 18. And you also cannot be admitted into a women's shelter unless you're 18.
Very interesting. Yes, so that definitely causes a problem. And I don't want to get off the topic here, but I'm not going to discuss it to any great degree. But I do understand. When you tell somebody you can't do something, then you have another problem altogether. So I'm not sure that raising the age to 18 is a good idea, even though I hear the arguments that you're making about the being able to get, for instance, welfare or assistance, or like you said, homeless, because they don't want a juvenile in a homeless shelter. You just don't want that. So I understand,
right.
And these are complications, but at any rate, that's just something for us to consider. So I imagine there's going to be quite an argument on the floor of the legislature. But go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no. It's interesting. I'm not sure where else you would like me to go with this.
Well, I think you, and I'm leaving this entirely up to you as to how far you want to go with it. But why don't you just tell us generally, if you can, what you have found as far as evidence to suggest, if not reasonable suspicion, if not probable cause, at least reasonable suspicion, that there are actually large numbers of children being kept, they've been either taken from their families, or however you want to address this, and that these things are, marketed out. Why don't I put it that way? If you don't want to go there, I understand, but why don't you just tell us about that? Because I don't think this is just in the polygamous societies. This is the method, this is the modus operandi of all of the pedophile networks. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about that if you feel comfortable?
Yeah. So, and we talked about this yesterday, these things that we're talking about, it doesn't mean that every member in these groups is even aware of these crimes. To suggest that would really be insane, because if they all were aware of these crimes, I doubt they would all be content there. But within, we'll go back to the FLDS, although I do need people to understand that the FLDS gets talked about a lot, but it does not mean that these crimes are not happening in the other groups. They definitely are. We have testimony that they are. Now, but within the FLDS group, they've been actually separating, this was really upsetting to me, separating children and parents for many, many years, over 15 years. And the way they would do it is really kind of sick too, because they would do it based on worthiness. So within one family, you could have a mother who was worthy, a father who was unworthy, a couple of children worthy, a couple of children not worthy. And based on that, if you were worthy, you got to go to extra meetings. And these extra meetings, I mean, the unworthy are assuming, oh, well, they're getting extra instruction. When really that's not what was happening at all. There's a current case right now on just massive abuse that was happening to young girls as young as age 8, where they were being taken from their homes 5 days a week, their mothers dressing them up nicely in nice, church clothes and braiding their hair, and they were taken in the middle of the night and basically raped every night. This is the current case right now, and you can even find it online. But with separating children and parents, and this is still happening, but a lot of these children are taken and they are absolutely trafficked. They're trafficked. And so we have a community down there where if we could find them, which is also difficult, most mothers down there are missing children. Gee. And they really have no idea where they are.
That is so distressing. But I've got to be honest with you. I'm not entirely surprised. As you know, as we talked the other night, I remained an independent. I didn't join any of those groups because, well, I just felt uncomfortable. There was something about it, plus the fact that because I had been a police officer, as I was telling you about, I was looked upon as with a great amount of suspicion that I was there to spy, which was kind of, and I keep running into that today, amongst other things. Like on my channel here, I get accused of actually being a deep state or three-letter agency operative, which is really kind of funny considering everything that's happened. But yes, it's very disturbing. And one of my reasons for asking you to come on, I've kind of already shown. Craig Sawyer has been at this for some time, and I'm going to encourage my listeners to tweet this if they have Twitter, or to contact Craig on his website, Vets for Child Rescue, and give him the information about you, which is in the description box here, because I think under the circumstances, Craig's in Tucson, Arizona, by the way, so I suspect he knows quite a bit about the situation along the border there with Colorado City, etc. And I think he could be a big help to you. So I've already sent him some information, but he doesn't always see mine. Sometimes it takes a number of things to get his attention. So I would encourage everybody to let him know about your contact information, and even you, Angela, if and I, you can get on his vetsforchildrescue.org website and just introduce yourself and let him know what you're doing. He could probably, I'm not saying he'll give you donations or anything like that, but he'd certainly be a resource. So at any rate, I would hope that we can do something about this. What do you see as the prognosis about this? You were stating, and again, I don't want to go too far here because of the sensitivity of this, but what has been the reception to you and your efforts by people in government?
Well, if I could backtrack just a little bit, I'm reading some comments in the chat. One of the comments was, "What is wrong with these mothers? A mother wouldn't do that. How could a father allow this?" I want to speak in defense of these mothers for a little bit. Although it's really difficult for us on the outside to comprehend, if we go back to the mothers, that example I gave you of the daughters being taken 5 days a week, those mothers, I very much doubt, knew what was happening. They thought their daughters were going to an extra meeting because they were worthy. There's layers of corruption, and if those mothers didn't absolutely believe that their children were safe, they would not have sent them. But at the same time, we have a lot of things going on here. I told you there's this fear of damnation.
The guilt thing. They always use the guilt card, don't they?
Yeah, the fear of damnation. And they use a lot of scripture that they twist. The law of Sarah is the one they use for plural marriage. You know, that when they perform that marriage, those women literally have to place that other woman's hands on the husband, and it's from all the women I've spoken to, it is absolutely traumatizing. None of them are feeling good about this. So I just wanted to speak a little bit in defense. I know when people first hear of this, it's very disturbing, and I thought those same things. How could they allow this to happen? But there's so much abuse intertwined. Another thing that's common in all of the groups is waterboarding of the babies. I mean, I talked with parents who actually did this. They actually did this to their children. The men are commanded that in order to take control, they need to waterboard their babies. And I've heard
what?
That if you go,
oh my gosh! I'm sorry. You know so much. I'm even getting shocked about some of this. So I'm sorry I reacted. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you go to a church service, you won't hear a single baby making any noise because of the waterboarding. And it's also, they do it in front of the mothers. So what is that doing? So it's just a whole atmosphere of abuse, right? And fear. Now, so I was just barely put in this position of director of Sound Choices Coalition, and I'm still kind of grappling with how to go about framing these topics, because for so many years, we're talking decades and decades, the issues within these groups have run on the phrase freedom of religion. And really that doesn't have anything to do with it. These are crimes that are happening. And so, currently the state of Utah chooses to look the other way. They absolutely look the other way.
Well, just like the government in general. I mean, Trump has been trying to go down that road. He ran on that platform. That was one of his platform things about the problem with child trafficking, pedophilia, etc. But to actually get that Leviathan government moving in that direction is extremely difficult. I understand.
Well, and really the first thing we need to do is have everyday people, like your listeners, see the need for this. Really, it's not until the people say, no, you must do something about this, is the government then forced, right?
Yeah, and I might, if I can interject again, because this is an interesting point. I have a Republican insider that I talk about all the time on my channel, and I was pushing this. We've got to do something about this pedophilia problem. There's that problem on the border. People were asking just a few minutes ago. You were saying that how could mothers let their children do this? Hey, we have mothers in South America and Central America that sell off their children and are brought here to the U.S. That's why Trump has been so careful on trying to determine the real parentage of some of these children and why they get separated to make sure that they're doing the right thing down there. But along those same lines, and actually, as usual, I diverge so far, I forget my point. So anyway, go ahead. I was trying to bring too much in. I apologize.
No, it's fine. I mean, really, what I was saying is we need to get the people to realize these problems. What I see in Utah is, especially down with the FLDS, where you can pick them out, you can see them. A lot of them have actually been pushed out of Colorado City and Hilldale, and so they're now overflowing into Cedar City, Parowan, Enoch. At least now you can speak with them. It would be shocking for them to have anyone talk to them. But we've just got to start seeing the situation for what it is, and knowing that there's really no resources for these people. There's no government, not by government. There's not.
So it's up to people like you and Craig Sawyer, etc. And I did recall what I was going to say there, and I'm sorry I lost track. I do that a lot because I try to bring in too much information. My Republican insider was saying when I was starting to push this thing with Craig Sawyer and the problem with pedophilia, he said, he called me up and he said, Roy, you got to back off of that because the American people can't handle it. They can't look at this thing. They just turn it off because they can't believe that things are that bad. And I've disagreed with him on that, just like I suspect you would as well. He looks at it from a political point of view. Let's get our numbers up so that we can get the right people in, and then we can do something about it. And I'm saying, well, while we're doing that, kids are being hurt. Little girls and little boys are being abused, maimed, even murdered. And so for that reason, I have not shut up. Usually, everything he tells me, I go along with, but this is one I have not been able to do. So, yeah, I don't know how we're going to raise the consciousness, because he is right. American people don't want to hear about this. It really bothers them. They want to put it in a room and shut the door and not look at it. But you're right, we can't do that, and that's why we're doing what we're doing today. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, at what point are we going to realize that, we've got to protect our children, whether they're our own birth children or not. Like, our children are the future. And we just have to. They're in a situation where they cannot help themselves. And so, with the type of person that I am, I'm not one who can just sit by and say, I'll just let someone else handle it. I have to know that I've done all that I can. So,
well, you've definitely put yourself out on the front lines of the battlefield, and I personally have to thank you for that. And I'm sure that there are a lot of people listening that would say the same thing. Go ahead and look at the chat there again, Angela. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just checking to see if there's anything here that I would like you to address. And of course, if you see something, please go ahead.
Yeah, I see Lady Katie, shockingly, many fathers are the group's J, and they want to leave too. You're absolutely right. That's why it's not just a problem with mothers and children or girls, right? This is a problem with the entire culture within these groups. When you hang, and it goes back to religion, when you hang salvation on it, and you've been raised that way from your birth, and then you're in communities that isolate themselves. I mean, at least the boys do have a bigger chance of seeing things on the outside, because they do work on the outside, even though they're working typically with construction or companies run by these groups, but they do get outside. They go to the store. They're pumping gas. They're seeing other normal human beings. But
Right.
at the same time, they're also taught that we're all going to hell.
Right.
And if they associate with this, that they'll go to hell too.
Yeah, part of that
But-
control is just like we see in any organization. Isolation is part of the way of controlling people, and sometimes it's very subtle, whether it be political isolation or personal isolation or medical isolation, or, as you're saying now, personal salvation isolation. The state of Utah in particular is partly responsible for this, because and I don't know your religious persuasion, but I have a lot of background and knowledge in this. Of course, the Mormon Church earlier, and they don't like to be called that anymore, but the Mormon Church earlier was very much for what they call plural marriage, and technically it's polygyny, not polyandry. Polyandry being a woman with more than one husband, but which I don't have a problem with either, if that's the way people want to live. But I guess the point is that it became a religious issue initially in the state of Deseret with all of that, and then the persecution started, and it had something to do with the Civil War, and I don't want to get into all the history of that, but Manifest Destiny and all that. But basically what occurred was that the U.S. government, to counter what was happening, to interrupt their Manifest Destiny, made this plural marriage synonymous with slavery. And in a lot of cases, as you pointed out, it is, because anytime you try to say that a person has to do something to be saved, you're putting yourself between them and God. And in my estimation, as you've probably heard, the situation where they say that you need to fear God, I think is a mistranslation. It's the actual word is awe, be in awe of God, and I think a lot of people know that I've said that. But anyway, where I'm going with this is that the state of Utah made these folks, with the instigation of the Mormon Church after it kind of changed tracks, I'll just put it that way, back after about 1904. Actually, it was in 1890, but in that time period, The state basically, with going along with what the church insisted on writing, the way they wrote the law, which was really religious persecution, forced these groups underground. And now that I'm talking to you, I'm thinking, what better way then to assist a pedophile network than to force it underground where it's not looked at, it's not on the surface. And I've never considered that, and you just brought that up, and I find that fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, it's the perfect storm to isolate. But I think once we've been made aware of these problems, I can see a lot of people not wanting to hear that this kind of thing is happening. People, we all have our own problems to deal with, but these are really, really bad things happening. It's not, they're not. It's horrible. I'm not even going into all the details.
No, and I know we talked.
I can say that, and I won't go into all the details. But I'm just giving you a really thin slice of the crimes that are going on, and it's really, really horrific. And so I do appreciate your time and.
Oh, no, we appreciate your time. And just so everybody knows, I met Angela for the first time. We had a little meeting with another friend of hers at Sundance Ski Resort. If you all that are watching this saw my presentation of Sundance Ski Resort when I walked you around there, it was that evening, of course, I was waiting to meet with these ladies. So I first met you, it'll be 2 weeks this Saturday, and it was really special. Looks like we lost signal. Don't go away, Angela. We'll be right back. This happens when I get to talking about things of importance. A lot of times my service gets interrupted, and probably it's like walking around the Mormon church that day, the Mormon Temple Square. They didn't like the fact that I was there, and so they sent security out. So let's see if I can get Angela back here. Hi, Angela. Like I say, this happens to me all the time. When I start bringing in government involved in these types of things, that type of interruption in my service is very common. So I apologize for that. Yeah, that wasn't you. That was, well, it was like I told you when we met. I wish I could say that I'm not in the iron sights, the scope sights of these people, but I am in certain ways. So I apologize for losing you there.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah. So if people do want to help, I don't know if you got my email with our webpage.
I'm not sure. I'd have to look. Let me see if if you go to. If you look off to the left from the chat, there's a box there. First of all, there's the title of the video. It says Better a Millstone Necktie with guest Angela Kelly. If you look in that box, it says Angela Kelly, Director, Sound Choices Coalition website, and it gives the website information. And then it talks about accepting donations. I don't see an email there. Do you want to give it to them?
The email would be... let me check, but you do have the Venmo incorrect. The Venmo is @SoundChoices.
Oh, okay. No, so it's what is that? Okay, I might be.
The Venmo is @SoundChoices, and when you Venmo that, the name that will show up will be Kristen Decker. She's the founder, but it's @SoundChoices. That's what you would Venmo, the contact.
Okay.
And the email is soundchoicescoalition@gmail.com.
Sound Choice. That's all run together, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Sound Choices Coalition @gmail.com.
That's correct.
And then it should be @Sound Choices Coalition for that other thing?
No, the Venmo is just @SoundChoices.
Oh, Sound Choices, @Sound Choices. Okay, I'll add that in so that we've got that right, and I apologize for that. Oh, I see what
Yeah,
you're saying. So not Kristen Decker. You want it to say at Sound Choices.
yes.
Okay, I will fix that. I will make sure I'm going to do it right, though. At Sound Choices. Is everything capitalized? Is it not capitalized? Run together? How does it
It
look?
can all be, yeah, people that use Venmo will know. In the search bar, you put at Sound Choices and it'll come up.
Okay, and I'll fix that. I can't fix it during the broadcast because it'll screw up the the transmission because it'll want to save it, and then it'll probably cut us off. But I will fix that once we hang up here and make sure that it's
Yeah.
all correct. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. This is a very courageous thing you're doing. You're standing up out there and really trying to make a difference. And I would hope that the folks that have been listening to us today will realize, again, this is not just a problem amongst the polygamous groups or any particular religion. It's across all cultures, all socioeconomic spectrums, but we can't solve all problems everywhere. So what Angela has done here is she's seen this problem in her backyard, and she said, as she said earlier in the transmission here, she's in Utah. She's concerned about what's happening here, and she's taking action. And that's how we do it. We don't overwhelm ourselves beyond our capacity, beyond our abilities. As Clint Eastwood said, of course, this is about men, but I think it's about women too. A man's got to know his limitations, and that goes for women too. So you're doing it the right way, Angela. You're handling this problem in your backyard, and I hope that people will respond to that. Let's see if there's any other thing that somebody wants you to cover here, and we've actually I've kept you longer now than I expected to, but I knew it would be important. So let's see if there's anything else here. Yeah, I don't see any specific questions. Have you seen one, Angela?
No, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I've been in this for so long, it's hard to know what to say.
Well, sure, yeah, familiarity with it, and then you're not sure what other people are concerned about. So we'll wait a couple of seconds here and just see what happens here. I see a lot of almost unrelated comments, and that happens. You're probably aware of how YouTube works. I'm surprised. I haven't seen any trolls, but I haven't been looking for them. But people do get sidetracked. Talk about getting sidetracked. Look at me. I got sidetracked. I got so much in depth on a subject I forgot to say, about my Republican insider wanting me to back off of that. Not because he's not concerned about it. He just didn't think the American people could handle it. And we're kind of seeing that problem, but we're going to try to wake them up to that. Okay, let's see. Okay, Lady Katie, this might be a good one. Have you, and she might be talking to me, but I'm wondering if she's talking to you. Have you done a documentary on this by any chance? Or is it too early now? You're probably waiting to get some other things done first, right?
Have you done a documentary? No, we haven't, but we are going to be. Oh, that was. Thank you for mentioning.
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing it up, because you said there were going to be some interviews, so that's why I'm bringing that up. Yes.
Yeah. So what we are going to be doing, if you'll follow the page. So we do have a Facebook page as well, and within about 4 weeks' time, I will be starting YouTube. It'll go live on YouTube and on Facebook of interviews of women and men who have left. So if you're interested in hearing those stories, follow us for that. As far as an actual documentary, no, Sound Choices has not specifically made one, but we will be having these interviews and we will be having videos made. One thing that we're planning right now that we really need funds for is this conference that we're pulling together for April. April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, which is why we chose the month of April. We're really concerned about these children. It's one thing to say consenting adults can do what they want as far as their marriage situation or living arrangement, but it becomes a real issue when you involve children who don't ask for that situation. So in April, we're planning an educational conference at the University of Utah Law School, and it'll be directed at law students and our legislators. We're also going to live stream that as well. So,
outstanding. That's great. And I just saw, remember I told you about the trolls, and I told, we had that little problem with the transmission on the phone. Of course, like I said, I get interrupted all the time. And this doesn't just happen with you. It happens at other times as well. I had somebody by the name of, I don't know if you saw it, Thief of Hearts, who told me to stop hanging up on you. You see what I mean? So thank goodness there was Liza Jean Williams, who is one of my regulars, and she came up and she put that person in their place. But I can guarantee you, I would never hang up on you, Angela. Crime, I don't care where it is. I'm not out here to protect an institution. And if anybody doesn't understand that about me, they've got it wrong, and all they are is a troublemaker. So absolutely, crime anywhere, especially when it involves our children, no, I'm not going to cover that up. I never have, and I never will. Angela, I want to thank you. I will get this information corrected in the description box. I did see a question if somebody is blocked on Gmail, if there's another way to get a hold of you.
Yes, I'm seeing several questions now. You can get a hold of me on Facebook, Angela Kelly, or Facebook Sound Choices Coalition as well. I'm seeing the question, children stuck in the situation don't understand, they don't have a phone number. Now, yes, I understand. These children are told to absolutely fear government. So that's why it's so important that if you come in contact with any of these people, that you show them kindness, because they can feel that. I'm good friends now with Brielle Decker, who's a former wife of Warren Jeffs. She was his 65th wife, and she remembers before they were moved down to Hilldale in Colorado City, being in Costco. And she said that someone had complimented her on her braids. She was maybe 12 or 13. And she said, Angela, it was shocking to me because I was taught my whole life that everyone on the outside was evil and going to hell, and yet I sensed kindness in her compliment to me. And I knew from then on that my leaders weren't telling me the whole truth. So, they really, when you're taught something from the day you're born, you're pretty much going to believe it unless you have an outside influence show you otherwise. As for the waterboarding question, is there physical evidence on those claims? We have many people who are going to be coming forward on that. We're building cases right now. So yes, there are people that will talk to that.
Right, and as we discussed, because of that, we don't want to get into the details of it, and that's right. That's a necessity. So people just have to understand that it's I guess you could call it, like certain government people say, I can't comment on that because of an ongoing investigation.
Right. Thank you, Laura, for your comment. And one question: can we open our hearts and homes to these children? You absolutely can. We work with an organization called Holding Out Help, and if you look them up online, they're the ones that are placing these children, and we desperately need host homes for them. Not just for children, but for women and children who are leaving.
Right. And it sounds like it might even be some of the men too. I know that sounds kind of silly, too. But yes. I've seen that type of behavior. I could tell you some stories, but I don't want to take away from what you're doing here. But I was mistreated terribly by some of those folks. And as I told you, they thought I was an informant, trying to spy on them, but that still didn't justify some of their behavior towards me. So no, anytime people that want to abuse power isolate you, that's a warning right off the bat. It really is. And as you said, of course, the society has some evil problems and all that, and we want to protect our children from that. But that, as you've shown, can be used as an excuse to also harm children inside those communities. So we need to stay balanced somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Angela, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I hope we keep in touch. You have an ally here, and my resources as far as my contacts have dwindled over the years. Most people that I knew in law enforcement have either retired or moved on to something else now. So I don't have those contacts, but But any way that I can help you out if you want to come back on, as this thing progresses and you get more information and you want to make the public aware of it, and of course just make people aware of of the fact that Sound Choices Coalition is available. You can come on anytime you want. Just let me know, okay?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ray.
God bless you, Angela, and we'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Out here. All right, well, there she goes. Very important information, and as I've said, this thing crosses all socioeconomic, cultural, institutional, governmental barriers. I mean, it's just everywhere, and awareness is really our responsibility. We have to be willing to take the blinders off and look at this. I remember Barbara Bush one time saying, don't fill my mind with these ugly things. However, ignorance is bliss. No, ignorance and silence are agreement. So we need to speak up. Okay, thank you everybody for coming. Let me tell you that on Tuesday, the long-awaited program on bad women and good women is going to go forward. I've one of the ladies who had a medical emergency. She's all healed up now. Things are looking well. She's not all healed up, but she's a lot better off than she was, and she told me that she's ready. So on Tuesday, we are going to have our program. It's going to be called Rebecca versus Jezebel. Nothing better than a good woman. Nothing worse than a bad woman. After today's topic, you might think that's kind of not appropriate, but we're going to go there anyway because you saw what happened with the Kavanaugh hearing and how these women attack, how these crazy people are attacking, conservatives and the idea of civility. Let's put it that way. So I think it's time. And a lot of this has been encouraged by the leftist Marxists in our society because it's a way to produce division. So we'll have two guests on Tuesday. Both are women, and I'm not certain exactly where they are on all these issues, but I do know that they are not going to be the feminazi type that Rush Limbaugh talks about. Okay, they're not going to be that. Even though they've both had relationship difficulties. But they're not going to blame it on men in general. I think that's where it's going to go. I also have some clips from some well-known commentators that we will be covering there as well. And one of those I'm going to play right now as a teaser before we shut down. So let me play that. One will be from Camille Paglia, and the other will be from Stefan Molyneux. And most of you will know that he's a great philosopher. He has a great understanding of a lot of things, and we're going to hear just clips from an hour. He gave about an hour and a half long video instruction and information. And I've taken a few clips out of that under fair use so that we'll have something to discuss when we get together on Tuesday. But for right now, let me play the little teaser with Camille Paglia. I saw this and frankly I laughed because she's entertaining as well as extremely brilliant. So let me play this for you here right now. Here we go.
And so by the time second wave feminism revived, okay, which was with Betty Friedan's co-founding of NOW in 1967, I was out of sync with them. Okay, so when suddenly they revived and began complaining about men and all that stuff and so on and so forth, and I hated it. Okay, and I was all out, and it was early clashes that I had with those feminists from the start. I tried to join second wave feminism, and they wouldn't have me. They kept them because I would not badmouth men. Because, you see, these women like Amelia Earhart and so on, they did not badmouth men. Okay, they admired men. They admired what men had done. Okay, and what they said was, we demand equal opportunity for women, which give us the opportunity to show that we can achieve at the same level as men, as who did all these great things. That was not the tone, okay, of second wave feminism from the start. It was always like, men, patriarchy, blah, 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 yum, 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 like this and so on. Bunch of them. I mean, these women were insane. Okay, from the start.
Is she great or what? Isn't she just fantastic? She and Jordan Peterson got together, if you know who Jordan Peterson is, in a program, I don't know, some time ago. And it was extremely enlightening, extremely entertaining, and, of course, informative and all of that. So, again, Tuesday, 8 a.m. Mountain Time, we will be covering the information, Rebecca versus Jezebel, nothing better than a good woman, nothing worse than a bad woman. And we'll have that clip from Camille again, and we'll also have some from Stefan Molyneux. So, and our guests commenting on their feelings on the subject. So I hope you'll enjoy that. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you for coming. Keep your eyes on the horizon, your ears on the ground. Keep your situational awareness on high. Things are getting hot. Don't forget to get out and vote for the midterms. Even if you live in a non-contested, non-battleground state, you need to get out and vote so that the numbers show the support for trying to fix the constitutional republic. Trump's not perfect, but he's all we've got right now. And I've talked about that before. So let's get out there and do that. Prep, pray, stay out of the way. You know, there could be some changes coming in the financial system here fairly shortly. You know, we've been hearing about this for years, but just because it doesn't happen doesn't mean it won't. Okay, there are some indications that some things are moving. We do know now that Soros has been giving money to the leftist Marxist groups to cause this dissension. I think that's been proven at this point. I hope that President Trump sends the Delta Force after him and all of his cronies and scarfs them up. We certainly have every righteous cause and legal reason to do so. So God bless you. God bless the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America and the Second American Revolution. And as I always say, God bless Donald Trump and all of his righteous endeavors. That the Spirit of the Lord may send him the spirit of discernment, that it will descend upon him as the dews from heaven, or a cloud burst possibly, so that he will know the right from the wrong, and most importantly, will have the courage to do the right thing. See you Tuesday.